Welcome to The InEVitable, a podcast by MotorTrend.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is MotorTrend's podcast, our vodcast about the future of the automobile, the future of transportation, and this week, the future of tuning cars. But before we get there, I'm Jonny Lieberman. This is Ed Lowe,
Hello.
and Ed has a message for you.
The InEVitable Vodcast is brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya, inspired by the future, designed for the now. And this episode is also brought to you by a delicious coffee drink made by the owner of this place, Josh. Thank you so much, Josh. It's delicious. It's cooling this place down because the AC's busted. But let's talk about our question of the episode. It comes to us from David Zimmer, who I think reached out to Jonny directly and writes, why is MotorTrends and your social media comment section a cesspool of trolls, misinformation, and anti-EV hate? And I say, how long do you have? Because we could talk about this for a long time. But let's give him the brief, the Cliff Notes version.
It's just sort of this weird thing. I'm going to pick on my friend Letta, who drove a Rivian today for the first time, and she texts me, I hate it. I go, why do you hate it? She goes, doesn't make any sound. I go, no, it makes sound. It just doesn't make a engine sound. And she's like, she sent me a picture of like a gull-wing Mercedes. She goes, I love that sound. I go, yeah, okay, but no pickup truck makes that sound. Like, most pickup trucks have a 2.7 liter Ford V6 with a turbocharger. It's a horrible sound. So get rid of that. I don't know. It's people like you could make a reproduction of a gasoline car. I don't know.
Why is it a cesspool though? When we had when we had the head of Ford on here, he mentioned it briefly. Unfortunately, EVs have become politicized.
Yeah, that's the real answer.
And it really is because, at the end of the day, a lot of the move towards electrification is driven by, ending or reducing your carbon footprint, like reducing the amount of carbon you're putting out in the environment through, manufacturing, the burning of fuels. And that, of course, has a climate change component. And then, of course, there's a ton of people who don't believe in climate change. And that part of it then becomes a red state, blue state kind of thing. So the trolling and the anti-EV hatred is because some people just get offended. Like, this is the irony of it, right? When the Prius came out, everybody's like, oh, Prius is a bunch of lame-o.
I'm literally writing an article about this very topic 20 years ago.
Yeah, and now what is everybody saying? Oh, hybrids are the future.
Toyota has the right idea.
Toyota's the right idea,
yeah. And by the way, Toyota's working on EVs faster than anybody right now.
Right.
It's just they're glowing in this like accidental fortune they found themselves in. Like they have a lot of hybrids, but
yes, and then this is the other thing we talk about a lot, which deserves to be mentioned, which is FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's a lot of people who fundamentally they don't understand it, and if you don't understand something, then the easiest way to respond is to put it down or to make fun of it.
And to be afraid of it. People are
right?
just afraid. They're afraid they're not going to be able to do what they do with their automobiles if they suddenly lose access to gasoline. And
government going to take my gas out of my cold dead hands, right?
There's some of that, but hey, look, it's a legitimate fear. Again, the way most people use vehicles is they jump in their car and they drive 29 miles a day to work. That's what most people do with their cars. And like Americans get 2 weeks of vacation a year, maybe they go drive a few hundred miles or 1,000 miles. Is it a little bit harder to do that in an EV? That second part, yeah. To drive is that changing? Yeah, but then you have to think about it and know about it and all this. Whereas the infrastructure is just there for gas cars to work. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit scary. But once you learn to go to a charging station, suddenly this works pretty well. It's not perfect yet. But again, if you're just driving 29 miles a day, an EV is a much better solution because you never have to go to a gas station ever.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes. But just to put a capper on it, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of trolling. There's a lot of anti-EV sentiment. That's the whole point of the podcast, right? I keep saying this. If this was going to happen, if this was easy or going to happen tomorrow, that's what we would have called it. We wouldn't do a podcast. We wouldn't be talking about it. So This is a transition. We know there's going to be bumps in the road. We're going through them right now. and that's what we're here for. But today,
Plus, social media brings out the worst in people.
Yes.
Let's also not forget that
Lot of
critical little point.
a lot of keyboard warriors out there.
Yeah.
So thank you, David, for the question. The swag, we just sent out all the swag to the first round of people that asked questions. So you'll be getting yours in a couple of months, probably. Hats, maybe a shirt, maybe a mug, stickers, whatever. Thank you so much for asking a question. If you'd like your question answered on air or during the podcast, shoot us a note. Jonny Lieberman at Instagram, Lowdown at Instagram for me. Email us at motortrend@motortrend.com or drop a comment in the YouTube. But now let's talk to Ryan Basseri, who is the founder, owner of RyWire Motorsport Electronics. He basically has been doing wiring looms, connecting engines in Hondas mostly, and now Porsches and all sorts of different cars, enabling high-performance tuning for the aftermarket, and is jumping into EVs.
Which is a little bit about what we were just talking about. Like, here's somebody who, he's people that do engine swaps in your Civic, put a K20 in there. They're enthusiasts, and here's an enthusiast who's embracing electrification. So let's see what Ryan has to say.
All right, Ryan Basseri, thank you so much. Or just call you RyWire, right?
You can call me RyWire.
Mr. RyWire. So, we will have fumbled the introduction pretty huge, but let's not talk about you yet. Let's just get an update on some of the things we were talking about at SEMA. You are working on some really cool EV, what do you call them? They're not Restamod. I feel like Restamod means like
What
a much
do you call
older
them?
car.
What do you call them?
But you're doing some EV
Let
project
Ryan
cars.
talk. What do you call them?
I call them tuner cars.
Okay.
I call them Hondas. Specifically, I'm a Honda guy,
Yep.
like at heart, I've always been a Honda guy.
Why? Let's get into that first. I always find it, this is just a personal thing. I always find it really interesting unless you work for Honda, who cares about brands? But why not a Toyota guy?
So my uncle actually started me pretty young, and he had a CRX, and I really liked the CRX. That was a really fun car for me. I was 15 and a half, getting my license, just really ramping up, getting out of the skateboarding and rollerblading and BMX scene. And I'm like, I want to do cars, And my uncle had the CRX.
Was it a SI or was it
wasn't.
HF or HF?
It was an
HF.
SI. It was the good one.
HF is like the one that all the tuners would actually get because it's the lightest one.
Yeah, true.
Anyways,
true.
but-
If you swap them, or I wanted to go into it thinking, okay, I'm gonna get the highest level, highest trim. I can have fun instantly in that car.
Yeah, right.
So I ended up
Unlike
getting,
an HF. Go ahead.
right, 89 SI for me. That was
Nice.
what I ended up getting. It was black, just like my uncle's. My whole family had SIs for whatever reason. In the family, we had a Prelude SI, Civic SI.
Right.
There was CRXs, there was hatchbacks, there was everything. So I just kind of was gravitated towards that early.
Right.
I thought I'd grow out of it. I actually sort of did. I started getting into the Porsche stuff a bit, air-cooled, water-cooled. I have a 997. I have a 993. I love those cars. They're great.
great, yeah.
They're great. I love driving them. On track, the GT3 is amazing, right?
Oh, you have a 997 GT3.
I actually have a 997 GT3 RS.
That's, oh, yeah. Oh,
Dot
yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well,
Johnny just went, "Hmm?"
no, I'm just saying, it's my 997 is great to drive. It's like, oh, no, it's not a 997. There's a big difference between a 997 and a GT3 RS.
Yeah. Try to stay
That's
humble
awesome.
a little bit, but
So,
Why-
Rywire's
why-
done really well for you.
Yeah.
With the motorsports electronics. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Actually, to be fair, a 997.1 isn't crazy money. It's actually, I won't say a bargain, but I think it's fairly priced. So
Gotcha.
They're great.
I got mine a long time ago, and I paid about $100K for it.
Yeah,
so
that's a fair price for what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. So
So
how'd you
then-
get back to Honda after Porsche?
So yeah, why are you
Right.
stuck in the 90s era Civics?
Stuck in the 90s. So a lot of my friends, and then also my business, right?
Yep.
We do a lot of Honda stuff. We do a lot of sport compact in general. So, the Supra 2JZ engines, we build wiring looms for those. And predominantly it's private label manufacturing, but also we bring our own product to the table. We sell our own branded wiring looms, and they're for swaps, they're for engine management changes and stuff like that.
What's your number one selling product?
Probably the Honda K series harness right now. Everybody's putting K in everything, so that helps really, really well with sales. But it was for a while. It was 13B RX7 stuff, huge
Okay.
rotary stuff. You know, everybody's tuning rotary engines.
How about LS? Do you do LS? Do you do any LS harnesses?
I do, fully bespoke though. So those are like my Formula Drift clients and stuff
Right.
like that.
Oh, right.
There's so much wiring looms available for the LS market. You know, Holley has a Dominator harness. They have everything, you know,
Off the shelf. Right.
ready to go. So it's hard to kind of fit into that market.
Okay. Oh, all right. Interesting. So then you're building an EG and an EK Civic, which are like the 91 to 95 and the 95 to 2000 Honda Civic hatchbacks.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
The little jelly bean looking one with the lights, and then the one that came after that.
Yep.
So
The good ones.
the good ones. Before I went to the EP3, which was like this weird sort of taller,
Yeah.
made in the UK body. I talked to you back at SEMA last year, and you were like blowing my mind with all this stuff that you were doing. You were sort of, I don't know, like the early stages. You were kind of tearing them down and getting things sort of set up.
Correct.
Where are you now, and well, just tell me, what are you doing?
Okay, so a couple years ago, we had a successful build with an S2000. That was a single rear motor performance Tesla drive unit. We kind of since then, I say we, but mostly me. You know, I'm doing all the development at the shop. I tore it back down, converted it to the AEM management system. Right there's
What's AEM?
So AEM is a engine management company, Advanced Engine Management. They actually were recently purchased by Holley, and they are just a control system. So
The
it's
black box.
yeah.
And
So
you can control an EV with it.
correct. So they have something called a VCU. So that's a vehicle control unit.
Okay.
And then they have satellite things. So for battery management, they have little satellite modules that basically read all the data.
A BMS.
Yeah, BMS. So you have a BMS, you have an onboard charger. Your onboard charger has your DC to DC inside of it. And you use all these little satellite things that basically have the EV system work in its entirety. So for the Tesla drive, you actually take out the Tesla logic board and you put in this AEM logic board.
Got it.
AEM kind of standalone controls it. It communicates over a CAN bus network. So it minimizes the wiring and it just sends data packets of information. So you have, you know, like let's say that there's a coolant temp coming in from the battery management system. It grabs that info, it puts it on the bus. Wherever that data is needed on the VCU, it can control it.
Right.
There's also power distribution systems, which is like another layer, where there's a programmable fuse box, if you will, and that can turn on your pumps. You can drive fans, do all the cooling strategies and whatnot.
Now, can you say, hey, make more power?
Yeah, you can. You can discharge the battery at a higher rate,
right.
And that's like, you know, kind of a BMS option, but the VCU strategizes that. So the VCU is the old ECU.
But you control, you being the builder, controls the VCU if you want to. Like if you
Correct.
wanted to just
Tune it, program it.
if you wanted
Yeah.
to just like I drove the Audi Hunatron Ken Block's thing.
Yep.
And like it just, you know, it's just dumping power. It's
yeah.
you know, 28,000 RPM. It's got 2 Formula E motors. It's literally insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to charge it the tires actually blow out before the battery runs out, but
Sure.
but you know what I mean, like it's the same battery that you find in like the Audi SQ7 hybrid.
Sure.
It's 4 of those batteries, and
Yeah.
you know they don't discharge like that in the Mommy Mobile.
Right.
So I'm always curious about. I hear a lot of people with EV tuning. It's like, well, we don't really know how to get more power out of it. But then like guys like Bisimoto,
Yeah.
he's like, no, sure, you just
Yeah, we do all the wiring on BC stuff. So
Okay.
like,
Oh,
Which we'll talk
cool.
about. Which we'll talk about.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll get to BC.
So
for sure.
so AEM, just because we're bringing back to there, but AEM was one of the biggest names in the tuning world because it was founded by John Concialdi, who just
Yep.
passed away.
Correct.
R.I.P. Right? He came up in the '90s and huge supporter of all of the tuning publications. Thank you for wearing the Super Street hat. But it was like the only game in town for the longest time because this is the standard tuner story is that everybody felt it was like the underdog, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, so there's a Holley out there. It's kind of ironic that Holley ended up buying them, but like the Holleys of the world, like they're not taking Japanese. I mean, front wheel drive, drag racing, get out of town. But you know, BZ came in here and told us the same story of Concialdi actually taking him under his wing and teaching him about a bunch of stuff, and you know, so it's cool. It's on brand that AEM years ago now. What is it? 10 years, like or 5? At least 5 years ago, started to take EVs seriously.
Correct. Yeah. Probably they probably looking into it maybe around 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
That's what I've seen. And then, yeah, they just started slowly ramping out products and developing things. And I know John was like really interested in that, and he took it under his wing, and then
Yep.
he kind of I don't know what to say, but it's unfortunate what happened, but
Right.
still it's good to see Holly take over
Yep.
because they are actually pushing forward and
Yeah.
creating new products. I mean, even since the absorption, if you will, they have created small drive unit controllers, so now they're doing those, and just the products are just rolling out. So
It's just
great to see.
smart, right? Like they probably saw the writing on the wall when Plaid started showing up to test and tune nights and the Friday night drags and breaking people off. They're like, huh, how do we get in on this market? Because at the end of the day, what's the saying? I
don't know.
The first drag race, the first street race happened the day after like the horse-drawn carriage was introduced.
Oh,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
Like
Look,
everybody wants to go fast, no matter what
course.
what powers it.
I gotta, it's one of those things where like, yeah, a lot of traditional drag racers push back on EV at first, but humans just push back on what's new. Like, I always tell the story. I believe it was 1903. There was 2 cars in Cleveland, and they hit each other, so they outlawed cars in Ohio.
Right. Wow.
You know what I mean? Like it used to be in England, if you could have a car, but you had to hire a guy with a red flag to walk in front of it and wave it, just so people knew the car was coming.
Anyway.
So yeah, no, but what I'm saying is I'm bolstering your point, Ed.
I know, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like obviously, the writing is on the wall, especially if drag racing is about going quicker than the other car. Boy, EVs have a huge advantage there.
Yeah.
Well, I was just, I don't like you to talk. I was just trying to bring it back to. We keep asking him what he's doing with these Civics. So let's.
Well, yeah.
Let's
Well,
talk about it.
okay, yeah. Well, before we get to that though, when did you first like learn like, hey, EVs are something? Again, if you're tuning old Hondas,
Right.
and then putting, how'd you get exposed to EVs?
Was it through
What'd you
BC?
think?
Yeah, it was. Okay. So what ended up happening is, I work a lot with BC, and we do a lot of gasoline engine stuff together. And he said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this EV stuff. I wanted to see what you think. And I'm like, well, I don't know a lot about it, but I could definitely handle all the low voltage stuff. Give me diagrams, documentation. Like, I'm going to go visit. Let's see what we could figure out together. And to me, the funny part, I was like, you know what? Throwing a Tesla motor into a car with a battery pack was too easy. I was like, I want to build like a parallel hybrid. That was more like the direction I was kind of thinking, right?
Right.
And obviously a lot more complicated, and I haven't actually built one of those yet. But BC's like, hey, chill, bro. Like let's think about this a little bit more with a clear head. And
You mean parallel hybrid, meaning running like a standard
Yeah.
hybrid, like a gas engine and a battery and motor combination to create some crazy.
right, to work in propulsion in the same direction,
And
parallel.
why'd you want to do that as opposed
it's
just because it
hard.
was too easy? It wasn't a challenge.
I didn't see that at the time. This is like, I don't know, 18 or something like that, right? I didn't know that full EV vehicles had the ability to last as long as they can,
Sure.
be actually as fast in a straight line as they can.
Sure.
I didn't understand, had no understanding of that.
Sure.
So I was like, I want my gasoline engine. I actually picked a old 911 82SC, and I got a 993 engine for it, and I was looking at those pancake motors to squeeze in between a PDK gearbox, and that was kind of what I was like, oh, I'm going to build something crazy.
Right.
That car took a turn.
Which,
and
by the way, Porsche's about to release in like a month.
There you go, right?
That's the 992.2. It's going to be exactly that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's gonna be good.
Yeah.
So basically that Porsche kind of was the direction I was thinking, and then BC's like, hey, this 911's full EV. I'm like, okay, well let's have a look. I'm still interested. I'm still excited by it. So seeing that whole process and learning those things, I was like, man, this is actually a lot more complicated than I had realized. Just with the charging system, you had to wire all the cells in the battery packs. He was using 2 400-volt hybrid batteries. Hybrid batteries are more power dense. He's like, I want power. It's all about power. I want to make more power than the Tesla is rated for, right? And which he did achieve, maybe by like 50 horsepower or something like that, because you're just derating those hybrid batteries. The 18650 Panasonic cells are more like energy dense, and they're a little bit less power dense. So, he had the right thinking, and I had started to understand things, and then he was giving me info, and I was looking up stuff online, and I was like, this is kind of cool. So I'm like, I'm gonna build something for myself just for like the R&D and understanding the systems, because I did want to be able to extend that service to customers in private label form and stuff like that. So like BC kind of opened my eyes up to it, and then that's when I built the S2000. Right.
So you said something there. You're like, yeah, I can help you with the low voltage stuff. Were you freaked out by the Tesla?
I was
big,
just thinking
the
that
big
too.
battery and
Hand
the big motor?
wiring.
I was like, wait, you have two 400-volt battery packs?
Right.
Isn't that 800? Like, no, it's not, but it's still 400, but it's
Right.
the double the amount of
Hey, that's what
safety
that's what
hazard.
GM's doing with the Hummer, right? It's two 400s that charge like an 800.
I mean, you're
Yeah,
like
yep.
you're a wiring, you're an electronics guy. You've likely been shocked many times
sure.
throughout your life, right?
Actually, more with my house at 110. Yeah, that's sort of fun. I
Right.
don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But-
Well,
but-
I've seen electricians that when they go to actually wire their own homes, like no precautions, don't turn any
Oh, yeah.
breakers off, just
Yeah,
I've seen
I
that.
thought, I could wire at my house because I do DC, right?
Yeah.
And I wired some rooms, and I did a lot of lights, and when I did a renovation, I definitely took charge with a lot of wiring the charger for the house too, the 220 and all that. So
Okay, hey, good.
But were you freaked out when it came time to open up a Tesla pack?
yeah.
or-
So every module that I broke apart, I was like, safe, and then it's like a manageable amount of voltage, and you're like, oh, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, this won't
I'm not gonna
kill
lick my
me too
fingers,
much.
but
Okay. Okay, so then
awesome.
so through BZ you get introduced to it, and then you built the EV S2k
right.
with our friends at Turn 14.
Yep, Turn 14. They're one of my biggest, or they are my biggest distributor, like by far. They're a massive distributor, and they distribute RyWire, which is awesome.
And
So,
your private label stuff too.
they don't do any of my private label stuff. Private label is more with a company, like even a small OEM or something like that.
Oh,
They're
nice.
Hey, can you build these, BMS harnesses or something? We'll develop it, and then we'll do a run of manufacturing.
Huh.
Or it's like a small tuner shop that's like, hey, all we do is these rotaries. And we put this Link ECU on all of them, which most people are doing Hall Tech, or I'm just dropping names, but
Right.
they're like, can you do the same loom that you're doing, but for us only? And I'm like, yeah, sure. If you do 50, 100 pieces,
Right,
then
small
it's
run of
all
it.
you.
And you do this all in Orange County,
Correct.
all by yourself?
No, we I have manufacturing in Los Angeles actually.
Oh, cool.
Shop in LA that I've been working with for 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
And they actually do. We do all the development in house, R&D. We build first article samples and all that. And then those private label run. I don't have enough staff to do that, and I don't want to run a sweatshop. You know what I'm saying? That's not the point, right? I don't
Let
have,
somebody else run the sweatshop.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Have you ever wired a 1987 Toyota Land Cruiser that's converted to diesel?
No, you know what? I've never done any real diesel stuff at all.
Oh, are you interested at all?
Kind of a noob. Is there a big market? Can we sell a lot of these?
It's a market of
Dang it,
one.
there's a market of one.
Yeah,
You're sitting
it's-
across
the
from.
market's in Ed's garage.
Yes.
But, hey, back to the S2000. So what the final specs on that? What did you took it for? Because S2000, if I remember, 240 horsepower, right? And
correct.
It was pretty light, just
Yeah.
under 3,000. So what did you wind up with?
A little over 600 because it's the large performance.
So more than double.
Yep.
Okay.
And-
From one motor.
Correct. One rear motor.
Wow.
Batteries are, like I said, there's two. I pretty much did more or less the same formula as how BC had it.
So BC's.
Yeah, spec'd it pretty similar, but I did go AEM, and AEM was just releasing control at that point. So I was dabbling with the control, and then we were converting BC's car over to that as well. And I kind of used a controller at first go because I had to get it done for a certain window with Turn 14. So I had to buy a different controller that it didn't really do all. It's like a motor spinner, it just makes the motor spin, and there's not much control with it. The AEM, and there's other companies that are dabbling with EV. Fuel Tech and Motec are also dabbling with some EV stuff, which is really cool. But AEM's local, they're easy to get. They seem to be the most ahead of the curve and giving the most amount of control. So
And then so this thing was over 600 horsepower, and what was the weight hit? Like it weighed more.
I
but-
need to weigh it. It's
Okay.
definitely heavier. It's probably 800 pounds heavier than stock, I want
Okay,
to say.
so 3,800,
Yeah, maybe
3,700.
35. Yeah, it could be a little.
Because you also lose weight, like you lose the engine and transmission.
And I took a lot of random stuff out of it. I converted it to hard top, so you lose some of those soft top, heavy stuff in the chassis. No gas tank anymore. So that
Right. Yeah.
Does it do a sick burnout?
you can do a sick burnout. Yeah.
Nice. And
Single speed transmission.
Correct,
There's
yeah.
nothing, it's just a
Tesla drive
Tesla
unit
drive unit,
with
right.
like a Quaife LSD in it.
and what's it run?
Quarter mile.
Quarter mile.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I keep tearing it apart and putting it back together.
Sure.
And right now, it currently is running. It's a runner. My power steering though, I need to figure out maybe AEM. I need to get Sam from AEM over and help me look at it. But I need to simulate because I'm using the. Excuse me. I am using the power steering system from the S2000. S2000 powering
It's hydraulic, wasn't it?
It's electronic.
Oh, is it?
And
Okay.
it relies on an engine ECU. It needs to see TAC, and it
Right.
needs so it needs to see an engine speed and a wheel speed.
Okay.
Which is really weird. So I'm
Why
trying
would
to
the
get
steering system need to see the engine speed.
Oh,
yeah,
come on.
because it'll vary based on your engine speed and your wheel speed. It'll give you that feedback ratio based on like your moving
Yeah,
speeds.
I've seen engines that won't turn on because it's missing a gas cap. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
when you get a computer involved and you say look for this data and it's not there, they don't work. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So like
Do you need power steering on that car?
It's
li-
very clunky and difficult at low
Without-
speeds.
yeah,
Like
okay.
really, it really
Like a
is.
911.
So when we converted to AEM, I need to figure out a way where we can like, send some false triggers, just like a digital pulse.
Well, let me ask you this: where are you getting the Tesla parts from?
Junkyard, basically. I mean, there's various places online that have good, reliable pullouts.
Could you take
Copart?
the power? I was going to say, could you take the power steering unit out of a Model 3?
So no, I mean, I probably could. I mean,
Okay.
anything's
Okay.
possible, right?
Yeah.
But the S2000 is incorporated on the rack, so it's not on the steering column. If it was on the
Gotcha,
steering column, I would just
gotcha.
pull the motor out.
Right.
I'd put like like a Prius one, and a lot of people do like different conversions with those. And there's aftermarket for those controllers.
Okay, because you want to keep the S2000
Yeah.
rack because
I just
it has
don't want
good steering.
Yeah, because then I got to pull that rack out, or I have to somehow figure out how to convert it to manual.
But you also lose at that point. You really lose the character of an S2000 by changing the steering ratio.
Yeah,
It's-
I need it on board,
Sure.
like I
Yeah.
have to. So when I changed to the AEM, then I just got massively distracted because of two more Civic. I'm the typical. You've seen the memes, right? You buy a project and then you get almost finished with it, and then you buy two more projects.
Sure,
you
sure.
know, like you have to do that when
Yeah,
you're a tuner
it's
guy.
a
like,
drug addict thing,
Yeah.
right? Like the hit's the high's almost done. You gotta get the next.
Yeah,
high.
what's the next
Sure,
high?
sure. Yeah, I get it.
So
Yeah.
what is the goal for the Civics? Is it to open up more? Are people? I mean, is there an enthusiast face asking you, "Hey, man, I want to put a Tesla stuff in my EG"?
You know what? The more that I put social media posts out, the more people ask for it.
Really?
So a lot of people have been hitting me up, like even local guys that run tuning shops are like, "Hey, if you do a kit, like, can I be an installer?"
Right.
Like local guys, I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool, right?" And then there's a bunch of people that hit me up and they're just like, "So when are you gonna come out with a kit?" So here's what happened. You saw the EK getting done on my social media, right?
Yeah.
It's like a Swiss cheese car, man. Like it's dual motor. I'm packing 85 kilowatts in it, right?
Wow.
So the car is fully cut up. The floor's all cut out of it. The back's all cut out of it.
Nice.
I'm developing like mount kits with Hasport, which is a Japanese Honda engine swap company. So we're doing all this development, and then I'm like, this is really going to be the flagship car. So I kind of started to tone down the S2000 a bit. I wanted to drive it, just daily drive it status more, right? Then everybody's asking for a kit, and I'm like, man, I should have built a Civic before I built the S2000. Like straight up, it's the honest truth.
Because there's 10 million more Civics
Yes.
for our
Correct.
S2000.
And
yeah.
then-
literally 10 million more.
And I have a stock S2000, and I daily drive that a little bit too. And the amount of thumbs up I started getting, I'm like, wait, are you pointing at me? In the last like 3 years, that car has really elevated itself. So
Yes.
now it's like, wow, you cut up this S2000 to build the EV, and it's like, well, the car was a piece of junk beforehand.
Right,
it was
right,
really,
right.
really bad, right?
Right.
And now it's like, oh, you cut this flagship car and you convert
Right.
like sacrilege.
Right,
and I'm like,
right.
wait a minute, 3 years ago, you guys did not care about these S2000s. It wasn't that
sure.
serious. So I feel like I should have started with the EG platform, EK, DC2. So
You know
that's
what,
the-
though? There'll be just as many people eventually that are sad that you cut up a Civic. How dare you?
I
You
know.
DC2 is,
I'm already getting it.
Integra. So
Yeah.
for those of you guys
Yeah.
playing at home, wondering, what is he talking about?
The
Yeah,
bug
but
eye
you know what I
Integra.
mean? Yeah. Oh. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just everything's cyclical. Everyone, I always think back to, remember the Cash for Clunkers program when people are like, oh, you're destroying that Ford Explorer? Like, oh, it's like, what are you talking
Right.
about?
I know. It's like, if it's
yeah.
free, yeah, somebody would take it, right? But
Right.
really, like, it just needs to be off the streets,
Yeah.
probably. So the EG,
yeah.
right? Okay, I was building the EK and it was getting all crazy, and then I'm like, you know what? I want something more manageable that's going to be like I can make a kit out of this.
Right.
So I did the numbers, and I'm like, I'm actually a little bit under budget on the EK. You're gonna think this is ridiculous, but my budget for the EK is $100K. All right, which is for a business, I have to build a whole car. Like this is going to be a resto mod, which we talked about. Like I'm putting all the cool JDM goodies on it, right? It's got really cool parts, but it also has some really expensive EV bits, right? So the EG was like, well, now I think I can get a really cheap Civic, and I can build a kit. And this is going to be like a zero cut kind of a deal. So the goal was I'm going to take a front Tesla drive, and I'm going to like it's a small drive unit. I'm going to flip it around the other way. That's because the reason why is because the leading part of the differential on the drive unit the motor would run into the steering rack, if that makes sense.
Okay.
On like all those DC, the Integra, and then all the Civic platforms. Also, you can make a mount kit because the engine bays are all the same. I can make a mount kit be the same part number for all cross.
I mean, we just literally published an article, I think on Friday, about how EVs are leading the way back to rear-wheel drive, because why have the complexity of turning wheels with a drive unit when you can just do a rear unit and front drive?
Is that what you're doing?
I'm actually doing a front motor on my kit.
Was it from? Oh, I thought you were turning around for the rear.
No.
Sorry, meaning that physical drive unit is
Yeah.
going to be rotated and spinning the opposite direction.
But it's a Tesla front drive unit.
Correct.
From a Model
S.
But it's on the rear axle or the front axle?
It's on the front axle.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you just
because it's zero.
You just say run backwards.
So it's going
Yeah.
to be zero cut. That's why, right?
Zero
I got
cut.
it. I'm sorry. I thought you.
You don't wanna cut
when
the
you
body.
said turn it around.
Yeah, I could have probably just like glazed over that because it's such a technical thing.
Sorry, I
You know,
missed it,
somebody's
yeah.
going to be like, well, if you just pull that out and put it in, like it's going to rotate the wrong direction. And I wanted to stay away from that, but now all of a sudden it's a confusing path.
But
right?
with EVs, you can do that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
So the only thing is with that, you do have to make a small internal adjustment because of oil pressure. But let's just leave that to me and let you guys not have to worry about that at all.
Well, not our heads.
Yep.
And a front drive unit off a Model S is like 250 horsepower.
Yeah,
or
a little
something
more.
like
I
that?
mean, closer to 300
Okay,
with an
wow.
AEM
Wow.
management.
Oh, okay,
management
sure.
in it.
You tune it up. Yeah. So
Depending on
300.
what battery pack you have.
How much does that cost at a junkyard?
That one, the front, cheap, man. Like $1,200.
Okay.
Wow.
I think it's
It's like
cheap.
a motor.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's
Yep.
cheap. Yeah.
What's a comparable B18? What would
How do you get 300 horsepower?
what's a comparable K20 these days? If you
So
were to pull it.
if you pull the right K, you can get one for like around the same price,
Okay.
like
All right.
a TSX
But
or
what
a Accord engine.
But dollars to dollars, like how much does a 300 horsepower K motor cost compared to the $1,200 Tesla unit?
Yeah, probably $10,000 for the K.
Okay.
I think.
So it's 10 times to get the same power.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
that's
hopefully
pretty
there's-
wild. Yeah.
If there's room for the battery packs in there, right? So obviously you're paying per kilowatt when you buy used batteries. So unfortunately, the kit right now is going to just use some like Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, like a single. It's only like 16 kilowatts.
Yeah.
It's not much.
Yeah.
But I want to start some. I want to get somewhere, and I don't want to cut the car. So I'm gonna fit the batteries in the back. So spare tire area. You're gonna lose your spare tire.
It's okay, yeah.
And then you're gonna put your modules in the back, and then you're gonna have your motor in the front, and you're not gonna really cut the car. Like I shouldn't have to cut anything.
How big is a Pacifica battery?
It's small. It's like 6 Nike shoe boxes
Okay.
for modules, and then you got to build a pack around it, and you're gonna
Okay.
put contactors and stuff inside of that.
Could you get a couple and like stack them? Like you'd lose some storage space in the rear, but could you stack them up and thermally manage that?
Yeah, if you cut your gas tank area out and you sacrifice your spare tire, but that's just Swiss cheesing the car again. So there's like
you don't
a
want
fine
any cutting.
line.
Okay, you want a kit that okay.
I want a
Right,
kit
got
that's
it,
like,
got it.
you might be able to get 60 miles on the charge or something like that. But I just want something. I just want to, even if I sell a couple of them a year, I just want to get in the door with it. And I want people in my scene to appreciate that, especially because people are asking me, like, I don't know if they're like, well, if it's anything over 20K, I'm not interested. I'm not sure where their price point is, but I'm just going to offer something. And let's face it, everything's done in CAD these days. Everything's CADed up. If somebody wanted to build my EK build with the dual motor and the Swiss cheese car, I could totally provide that.
Right.
Like I have everything all filed up, and I could easily just have everything cut and say, here, it's all tab and slot. Just have your welder fit all this together, fit it to your chassis, and I could build another car for sure. So we'll see how this one goes.
So this EG, this 91 to 95 Civic hatch, has this $1,200 Tesla Model S front drive unit going into the front, spinning backwards. The front wheels. You're putting the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid batteries in the back. 16 Nike shoe boxes.
No, 6 Nike shoe boxes, 16 kilowatt.
Sorry,
hours.
16 kilowatt, right?
There you go.
Roughly 60 miles of range or so.
Yeah.
300 horsepower. And you're saying you can provide, this would be a turnkey kit that you would sell at RyWire, or they would source the batteries and the motors themselves?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sell the motors or the batteries just because like the liability of getting bad stuff. Like
Got it.
I've
Okay.
actually had bad modules before. Like,
Okay.
You know, and I've only purchased not that many, and it's like
Yeah.
I've already had. So I don't want that liability. But I can definitely offer places where you can source that stuff. Hopefully, pretty reliable.
So you'd be giving them the direction, the instructions, the mounts, the VCU and the BMS.
Yeah, wiring harness, mounts, a battery box to fit your modules in.
Okay.
But what I do plan to do is I really want like for the moment I want local installers to be really taking the reins.
Okay.
But Honda guys are crazy. They want to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I was wondering. So your target audience is. It seems to be, it's not the guy at home, but it might end up being the guy at home. I'm going to do this myself.
It may be, but my target would be like local guys that have come and visited and own shops locally. There's like a few, like count probably 5 on my hand that are like, hey, you know, when that's available, let me install one, or let me at least like watch you get to the nitty gritty. I want to see you connect those phase cables, and
show me how it's done safely.
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so on your dual motor one, assuming you have a larger battery in there, and every time I see like again, lack of a better term, but a resto mod EV, where you remove the old powertrain, put in an electric powertrain.
Yeah, I think I know where this is going. Go ahead.
AC to DC.
Okay.
Is that where you thought I was going?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So it's always DC to DC.
Sure.
So in other words, you can't like they're never going to leave the city. They're non-road trippers. You can't fast charge them.
Okay, actually, that is where I thought you were going.
Oh, okay.
Charging, right?
Well,
The charging.
the quick charging. Like
Yes.
you can charge at home. It's
DC charging.
yeah. It's you can do 10 kilowatts an hour charging. That's dumb charging. But smart charging, where you pull up to your Electrify America and with the second prongs. So, are you working on that? Is anyone working on that?
Yeah. So here's the
good
thing.
answer.
Here's the thing. Okay. If you ask me right now, my S2000 is set up for CHAdeMO. It's kind of old tech, right?
Yeah,
It's starting to phase out a little
Yeah,
bit.
it is.
And
But
50
it's still,
kilowatt max, right?
yeah, but when you're talking, you only have 32 kilowatts. It's
Right.
still pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So that's on the table. CHAdeMO is totally doable. I use a different BMS, battery management, for the CHAdeMO because they actually have that internal, and it's pretty easy to do. You just add a couple contactors, add some more wiring, more logic on your VCU and PDM, and it's doable. I really, really, really want to do CCS, right? There is a module out there currently on the market that I could put in that car and fit in there, and they want like $2,800 for it. It's so expensive. In grand scheme of things, I probably would with just the budget on the car. You know, it would make sense. It would probably fit, but I don't want to add that just yet because I know there's companies like AEM that are working on things.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm fitting extra contactors. I have a bunch of spare wires. I have the CAN bus strategy stuff.
You're
like
ready to go. You're ready to go.
And when the time comes, I could punch out that plug a little bit lower, add my DC cables in the bottom, so it's convert it from J1772 to CCS. Right. That's the goal.
Why would you
long-term
do
goal.
CCS and not leap to NACS?
Um,
So for if you listen to home, CCS is the plug that most EVs, not Tesla, have currently, but they're all jumping ship to Tesla's charger.
Hang on. They were jumping ship, and then Tesla
Fired
fired 500 employees
Right.
that work on
Right, right,
NACS.
right.
And
Yeah.
by the way, I was hearing that German companies are now having board-level meetings about maybe we don't go to NACS. Maybe we stick with CCS since it works, and Tesla's completely
Why
unpredictable.
would they just hire
I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard.
Tanucci and her
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
team?
I don't
That's
know.
the
I
Tesla
don't-
team.
yeah.
Okay, but anyways, why wouldn't you jump to
It's hot on NACS.
NACS?
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So, because the tuner market is always behind. We're always trying to play catch up, like
Right.
just getting the Tesla motors to spin was a huge, years and years and years of development that I didn't have to do, thank goodness. But, so we're always behind. Like, CHAdeMO, right, is still relatively, and people only been charging CHAdeMO for a few years, and it's already kind of behind. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really just the struggle of kind of catching up. But once you're DC charge, it's not that much different. It just, the tech has to get into the VCUs. It's got to be a third-party module. So when somebody comes out with a module that's doable to wire in, if you will, you're already going to set up, you're going to have heavy wires there for DC straight to some DC contactors. That's how it works. And it'll just allow charge straight in. My thermal management system is, I think, definitely sufficient. I actually have, you're familiar with all the valves and whatnot in like the Teslas and all the different EV cars, directing and implementing
valves,
water valves, like
For coolant.
for cooling.
No, I'm not, but go
Okay,
ahead.
so
Yeah.
so there's like 3-way and 4-way valves that introduce different loops.
Okay.
And it's all different
Oh,
strategies.
yes. Okay,
right?
yes. I didn't know. I never heard the valve part, but I've heard that there's like 4 cooling stages or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. And what those are electronically controlled servo motors, and
Right.
then there's just little like 3- and 4-way diversion
and that
chamber valves.
flows coolant to where
Yep.
it's needed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also through chillers. So if you have air, like nowadays, all the Japanese cars, like we don't use AC, everybody's taking AC and stuff off the cars. It's just easier to not do it. Well, I'm getting older and I want AC and I live in LA, right?
Right.
But also,
me too.
but also the cooling strategy for it. So what I'm actually doing is I'm using Freon and strategy on the VCU. Like I'm not gonna click on AC. Like my VCU, my controller is gonna go. We're gonna go into a drag race mode, or we're gonna do a track day, or we're gonna go around the track. I'm gonna chill and I'm gonna freeze basically my drive unit or my battery packs, right? And then they're gonna turn on the air conditioning. It's gonna introduce Freon through a heat exchanger, and then the water is gonna go through that heat exchanger, and it's gonna like zap it cold, right? And then now you can cool. Also in that same loop, I have a heater. So you can change some valves, and like I said, the VCU is going to just manage all that for me, right? And I'm going to have a heater, so if it does get really, really cold, it's
Right.
not in LA really, but to get in that, batteries like to. I mean, I know you guys have heard this. They want to be like a human, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, it's a little like 2 degrees hot. Well, let's make it 2 degrees cooler, right?
Sure. There's an optimum temperature range. Yeah.
Especially
for
if
peak performance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to request that peak output of torque, right? So that motor knows, hey, to get to 100% torque, which you're requesting right now.
Right. 75 ambient's good.
Yeah. And or hey, we need a little bit less. So it'll introduce a valve and it'll turn on some things, and you're in the driver's seat. You're not feeling air conditioning. The AC system's on though, because it's zapping. Like when the Tesla does that countdown. Ready, in 4, 3, 2, 1. It's ready to go. Now you do a ludicrous mode, right?
Yeah.
It's actually like prepping all that stuff.
Right.
So this is wild. So the EG, the 9195 Civic, is for the common man.
Yeah.
How much will it weigh, and how much is that kit going to cost?
So that I'm hoping that you're going to be in the 20,000 range.
$20,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean that seems crazy, but I mean guys are spending a lot of money on Civics.
What's a beat like EG chassis? Like what is they selling 10 grand or no to get a Civic?
So chassis without an engine, or like with just a stock engine, you're around $5,000 for a Civic,
Okay.
maybe 10 for a clean one,
Okay.
right? And then an engine swap is going to cost you probably another 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So
So $20,000 for your kid plus a $5,000 to $10,000 car. So
Yeah.
25 to 30 grand isn't crazy.
How
for
do you
something.
how does this pass smog?
you know what? It's smog exempt.
Right. So, can you go
Yeah.
gold star? What is it? Gold sticker it?
It's amazing. Yeah. So what you do is you go down to either your like Department of Motor Vehicles, or to the smog referee, or to the CHP. I've called around, and then they're like telling me all these different things. But when they get their act together, they're going to tell you to go somewhere, right? And they just need to verify. I'm actually, my S2000 is fully verified, ready to go. I just need to take it over there, and I've just been lazy because I'm really trying to get these Civics done for SEMA, right? Anyway, but you take it to a smog place, and then they verified that there's no gas tank. If there's no gas tank in the car, I had to show some pictures and stuff, and I was emailing this guy and whatever.
Sure.
And he was prepping for it, and you have to show there's no gas tank in the car. There can't be gas. It can't be reverted back easily. So now you have a smog exemption status.
Right.
So that's the coolest part, I think,
Right.
And it just makes owning these cars way better, in my opinion.
So are you telling me it's easier? Because the hardest part about a lot of these crazy engine swap, especially like LS swapping or even updating, is when you take it to a state ref or a Smog place. If it's still running gas or whatever, it's still running internal combustion, they got to check everything. And if one thing is off, they're like, sorry.
Fail. Oh, like, I mean, there's guys that are so strict at state referees. If your Smog purge solenoid, which is basically sends your emissions from the intake manifold after you turned off the car through a charcoal canister, right? If that's like the wrong year, or the the vacuum hose is like a wrong diameter or a different length than factory, fail.
Right.
Sort it out. Go ahead and change it. Get one.
Have
from
fun with your vacuum hoses from.
And now, so now you show up and you're like, I don't even have a gas tank, and they probably pop. They go, I don't know what I'm looking at. So, but no gas tank. But okay, great.
So once you get past that Smog, basically, you're verified. You don't have to Smog anymore. They won't even send you anything in the mail.
Yeah,
you're just Smog exempt.
Yeah,
amazing.
So the exemption status for our Hondas, like, think about how amazing that is, because the worst part about owning one of these Japanese old school Hondas is dealing with smog and police officers and getting pulled over. And think about how many less variables now you have.
Right.
I mean, you don't have the sound, sure, but I tell you what, guys, I know you guys have driven the GV60, right? Mm-hmm. So Genesis actually gave me a press car, and I'm driving it right now. I drove it up here, and it has the engine simulation. Yeah. Sound, engine sim. Okay, can I?
No.
Tell you.
Look, it's a crutch. It's like a plug-in hybrid, right?
Yeah.
It's a crutch to get like us to the next 10 years. You
know? My experience with driving that, I'm in the canyons and I'm driving it. I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But then I put it on the EV mode and I'm like, but this is like way faster and it's actually better.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to kind of port those people over, because my guys.
Yeah.
They hate on it so much.
I was literally having a conversation with someone before we started, and she's driving around in a Rivian, and she's like, "But it doesn't make any sound." And I'm like, "But who cares?" Like, you're missing out on the great F-150 V6 turbo sound. Like, wow.
Well, I don't. The Hyundai Ioniq N recently sparked this again because it has some crazy noise.
Yeah, it has fake shifts.
Got verbal tunes.
I always go back. In 1906, there was a car that I think it was the Horsey Horseless, which they put a horse head on it because they wanted the driver to like feel like they still had it's just we're gonna look back on this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but everyone's doing it. Like the new Mercedes, the electric G-Wagon, the G580. It has G-Roar mode where they literally took the sound of a G63, and it's $9 billion, 9 billion speaker Burmeister unit. Not only does it sound exactly like a G63, but like the speakers behind you in the back seat,
you feel it.
That's where they play the exhaust pipe noise, because that's where the exhausts are. They're down below the rear doors.
Yeah, that's like
it sounds exactly the same, and then you can switch it off, and you're like, who needs it?
Right? So, like it was a novelty thing that kind of made me enjoy driving and shifting it for a little bit, and then I'm like, single motor, like single speed is just actually so much better.
Couldn't you put like a Tesla Plaid motor and then like a welded diff, and then you actually have some cool gear noise
sound,
at high speed?
I mean, I've talked about this before, but like I got a ride in the Porsche, the Mission R, and it's got two straight cut gearboxes.
Yeah.
One speed, but like, my God, that thing makes noise. I don't like the noise, but it makes a lot of noise.
Yeah, the Von Gittin Mach-E 1400 was a huge inspiration for my S2000 build. I rode with Von on that car.
I drove that thing. Yeah, it's wild.
It's really wild. It's a lot of fun.
It's really hard to drive, actually.
I'm sure it is. But that's got a lot of sound to it. A lot of noise coming out of that.
7 motors.
Yeah, I know, 7 little axial motors all stacked together like rotaries. Basically.
Yeah, I think it's the Mach-E motors. It's like 7 of those. Yeah, the thing's nuts. Yeah,
super cool.
Yeah.
So then, can I ask where? Oh, sorry, you were going someplace with the GV60, just that it has a noise.
Yeah,
but you have a Hyundai collaboration going on, right? Are you working with them on something?
Not really. They just they're local to my shop, and then one of my friends kind of set it up and was like, "You want to drive one press car?" I said, "Sure."
Oh.
But it's good for you to see also how a modern EV goes.
No, I'm looking at the buttons on the steering wheel. I'm going, okay, like I'm putting paddle shifters on my EK. Just because I could do different options, but it could just be an engine simulation kind of a deal too.
Sure.
Or it could just be flashing through, like the GV60 has the I pedal, they call it, for the Regen mode, right? Like I could just use them for Regen.
Sure.
And it's a CAN-based steering wheel that I'm using from this new company, and it's really cool. It's got like tons of buttons, like a mini Formula One kind of knobs and everything, but it's a 4-wire hookup because it's all over CAN bus, powered CAN. 4 wires.
Right.
So you can do all these knobs and twisting and clicking, and it's all carbon fiber, and it's really nice.
That's
and
cool.
It's 4-wire hookup, and I can do whatever I want to program on that. So
Nice.
So
No, that's cool.
do
Do you, real quick though, how do you feel about regen? Because this is another thing. Again, a friend of mine, she's driving this Rivian, and she's like, I hate how you take your foot off and it almost stops. So you take your foot off the throttle, and I'm like, you need a day to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna say, why do I have a brake pedal? It's so stupid.
I normally kind of do 1 click down on the
Okay.
Genesis. That's what my I mode, or the mode that for my driving. It seems to be like 1 click down is good for me. But full regen's cool too. If I feel like I'm a little range anxiety going on, I might click it. And we were going down a hill. I actually went up to Big Bear, right, this weekend with my
Nice.
wife, and we took the car up there.
Still snow?
There is snow up there.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was cool. It was really really pretty.
Yeah.
But going down the grade, like the whole hill,
Oh yeah.
it was wild. Like we were recording, and we're like, oh, we're at 61% now. Oh, and we got this many miles, and you're just seeing it going up.
If you get a good run down Big Bear down to the valley down
You're
there,
charging.
I mean, you can recoup like 25% of
That's
the battery.
wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. You have
Yeah.
to make sure there's no other traffic or anything. But yeah, you can. There's a way to do it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So the EG for the common man, the EK is a sort of all-wheel drive,
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting didn't you tell me you were cutting the entire like undercarriage out of the chassis to put the batteries in the floor? Is
Yeah,
that right?
so that was a decision that I had made based on just real estate. I didn't want to have another car that was just like, under 30 kilowatt.
Yeah.
So what I decided, okay, I could have totally chose better batteries than I did, and these are the 18650, old school Tesla module S.
But everything has a price, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And those were still like $16,000 used. Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
But it's 85 kilowatt, and I wanted to be able to drive a far distance. I wanted to be able to do a track, 20-minute session or something like that. I wanted something that was thermal cooled, at least a little bit, because some cooling helps. It goes a long way. It goes a long way.
Sure.
So they had the right things, and also the height of the batteries, the modules were only like less than 4 inches. And I'm short, but I also want other people that are taller than me to be able to drive the car.
Sure.
EK, that's why I chose the EK, because it's like from the EG, for example, the new little bit newer body is a couple inches taller on the head, on inside for the cabin. So I figured I could actually use that floor real estate. So I cut out the floor and I made a structure that looks the same as like how Tesla does with if you've ever seen a pack that's open like a sardine can. They have little aluminum structures, and the modules just kind of set on a little flange. So I did that for the floor area. That's half the pack. That's 8 modules. Then I got with this company that does a really nice billet modular battery boxes, basically. And I can stuff my BMSs in them, and I can run all the cooling and everything, and it's super tidy. I mean, like really, really nicely laid out.
Or
I cut where the rear seats would be and the gas tank. So that's all cut out. There's a massive box, and then there's a little tiny box with a couple more modules above it. And then that's mounted above the rear motor. And then all my contactors and electronics are in like a little spare area in that box.
And then how much total capacity is that battery?
85 kilowatts.
That's 85. Okay,
Yeah.
that's 85.
so you got a
So that's-
P85. Basically, you got a P85 donor, and you took
It's-
out
yeah.
like a P85 dual motor. So you take out both motors from literally
Correct.
those. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And I sourced everything separately, but I didn't get like a full car. All the wiring is all bespoke. Like, we're laying out everything from headlight to taillight. That's all custom, of course. And then all the electronics that are like, there's literally no Tesla electronics on board at this point.
Right. Wow.
And it'd be
Just the hardware.
2 seats.
Yeah, 2 seats.
Okay.
Have you run across a crashed Lucid yet?
No.
Because it's basically the Lucid Air is like the same engineer.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Gen 2 of the Model S.
Mm.
But the battery, I mean, for one thing, like the cooling on the batteries, instead of how with the Tesla it's snaked.
Yep.
On a Lucid it's on the bottom.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so supposedly it's just a way better way to do it.
Yeah.
And then again, the motor is half the weight and
Oh, fits in a carry-on, right?
fits in a rollerboard carrier, but it's also like 670 horsepower from a 120
Yeah.
pound object.
So my thought there again, we're always a little bit late.
I mean, there's
to the
not a lot of
market.
them. There's probably not that
Yeah.
many that are crashed.
And
but-
also, like, hacking and getting into that is just like development in itself. Now, I'll tell you what, something that I could totally do in the future. Borg Warner / Cascadia has a whole line of aftermarket motors, controllers, and then they use the VCs with AEM. It's all kind of collaboed. And they used to use like these. Larry Reinhardt was an old school inverter company, and they bought that technology. So they're just
Okay.
like they bought up everybody's
Sure.
the best of all these
So
different.
they saw that there's a market for
yeah,
this.
and they're
they said,
making full drive unit packages.
Right.
Those drive units, the power levels, they got dual ones and stuff now, but you're looking at 15, 20, 25,000 just for those like.
So it's expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I just got to get my feet wet with it. I want to
Right.
kind of see where the market's at. If I jump into it and go, here's a full Cascadia system with brand new modules and brand new everything all packaged up, you could be 50, 100.
Right. So it's pretty
like
price
crazy.
sensitive what you're doing.
Yeah.
And now it seems that you keep talking about Model S. Have you, just because there's a billion more of them, or thousands and thousands of more? Like, have you looked at Model 3s, Model Y stuff yet?
Yeah. So unfortunately,
go ahead. Yeah.
so the design of the Model 3 is interesting for the tuner market. It's kind of the Tesla controls are actually like all kind of molded into a casted piece.
Yeah.
So you have to redesign a lot more. The Model S, there again, there was a ton of them, and then all this development takes years.
Yeah.
So the circuit boards were easy; they just pop right out.
Right.
A couple cables.
Model
pop
S
right in.
in one way was, I don't want to say cost no object, but like if you see a Model S with the skin off, you're like, wow, that's an impressive looking vehicle despite the powertrain.
Totally.
Whereas Model 3 was like, it was much more, trying to get the price down by half.
How did you learn all this? Did you go to did you go to school for like are you like an electrician? Or
No,
did you?
marketing. Yeah, and I dropped out. I was at San Jose
Nice.
State, and I dropped out.
Perfect.
And I was like,
Excellent. We love it.
yeah.
But so you're self-taught, like making like just wiring and making looms, or just
Yeah,
like,
so
what?
how I started was I was in college, and I was just kind of like, I don't want to be. I was doing like marketing and also like some computer science stuff, and as much as it sounds like I know I'm like a brain with computers, I'm really not. It's more like I'm more mechanic, and I'm just not scared of that stuff. And if I have to learn it, I have to learn it. But I was just building like Honda B series swap wiring harnesses and selling them on eBay. And then I got with a friend, and we were in a little Honda CRX community, and it was like, let's sell these wiring harnesses on a bigger scale. So then they started moving, and I was doing like all these conversions. If you remember, do you remember the CRXs back in the day? They had two injectors. They were called DPFI, dual point fuel injection. Okay. I was doing like 2 of those a day, converting them from 2 injector to 4 injector. Okay. Building those wiring harnesses. I was doing 2 a day, and I was charging like $300. I was making like $600 a day, trying to figure out how can I go to college, but I'm making $600 a day doing this. Like,
Hey, that's pretty good money.
yeah. And then I got them down to like around an hour to do a harness.
Right.
It was really good.
Oh, so you're making $600, $300 an hour.
Yeah, I was doing pretty well at that point.
Yeah.
I was like,
Why go to college?
Yeah, I'm like, this could be a thing. So then my dad gave me a loan of like 20 grand. He like borrowed against his house, and he's like, here's 20,000, maybe it's 30,000 bucks. I don't remember, but I was able to actually, I was using these jumper harnesses to convert from OBD1 to OBD2, which is like an engine management from like the 80s to like the early 90s engine management. And all the CRXs wanted that. So I actually hit up the guy that I was buying from. He goes, you're my best customer. I'm like, man, I'm running this out of my house, and I'm your best customer. That's wild, right? And he's like, I'm actually going to work for Honda and tune cars in the early 2000s. And then I'm like, okay, can I what's your company worth? And he's like, oh, just buy everything. I can't work because it's too like conflict of interest because Honda.
Right.
He's like, just buy everything that I have here. I'm like, well, what's that going to cost me? He's like, 30 grand will get, all these parts, my sources on where I buy everything. And then so I was buying these little ECU patch harnesses. And then now I'm manufacturing those to go along with these engine looms. And then it just kind of started to build. And then we got like, a whole room in our whole house dedicated to, like, my roommates were all working for me, And then I moved to Southern California because I was in NorCal at the time.
Yeah.
And then I got my ducks in a row, and I rented a shop. And then now we own our shop, and it's great. It's awesome.
But what about when you start getting into the Tesla piece? How much did you have to learn about? Are you doing any coding? Are you doing any of the software side of that? Or
I'm not doing any of the software side. It's more like programming at the most.
Right.
So
The AEM is an app, essentially, for lack of a better term. And you say, these are the variables I care about. When this happens, do this. But you're using somebody else's programmed the app.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was having issues with some battery stuff, and I really had to get into that that quote unquote app, if you will, for the BMS. and I was having issues with battery stuff, and I'm like, what's going on here? But I had to learn, and now I learned that system like crazy, like now I know that kind of inside and out just because I had no choice because I was having issues trying to figure out why are things not working out right. So it was rough, The S2000 was built a couple times and massive learning curve, but I got a lot of props from like EV builders, the very small community of people. They're like, this is your first car? I'm like, yeah, but I'm a car builder. I've done all these really cool jobs and hundreds of like thousands of clients with wild projects. So this is like really kind of easy for me. But there was a lot of like, the high voltage side of things was intimidating, different. I mean, it's a strange world. But once you wrap your head around really what's going on, you start to understand like the ins and outs, and it's not hard.
Who do you look up to, or who's like the OG in the EV Rustomod space in your book? Is it like EV West? Is it those guys?
Did you ever
look?
Funny enough, maybe I'm stubborn. I have ordered a couple components from them because they have a website that's pretty well put together. If you wanted to buy a certain kind of wire or contactor, they have big stock. If something's out of stock, I've ordered from them before. I don't speak with them. I don't really talk to anyone per se. BC's got to be the only guy, but we're I'm not going to say we're on the same page. He has definitely done a lot more development and research and stuff with just the ins and outs of the calibrations and stuff like that, right? I look up to him a lot, but then he quickly calls me and asks me questions, like, hey, Ryan, you would know this. What's going on here?
Right.
And then we can bounce back information.
Yeah, he seems like he's just like, where's the envelope? How do I push it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to, right?
Right, yeah.
And then, so how do you extract, because we're out of time, how do you extract more power out of these components? Is it literally just... Is it like overclocking a PC? Is it like where you just dump more power into them, make the motor spin faster, and then pray it doesn't blow up?
If the battery can discharge more, and then you have electronics that are able to, like, the more voltage, the more power. Okay? So, for example, we're on a 400-volt battery on the S2000, for example. If I added one more module, I wouldn't max out that inverter because you can only build as much as the inverter can even read, right? So I could probably put another module in, and I could build that up to a little bit more voltage. But then you have to, wire that in, and all those cells have to be talking over the same network. Right. So it's massively complicated to do that. But if you wanted to, you could add a little bit more voltage, and then now that motor has more power potential, and then you have a power dense battery that can basically hit the KERS from Formula One, the KERS button, right? It's sort of like what this is. You give it just discharges the battery
for 20 seconds.
It's like a capacitor, right?
Just dump it.
Just another plug for the Lucid thing, since tuners always want more power.
Sure.
I think it's 917 volts is their system.
So.
Yeah, so it's really powerful.
Yeah.
If you
yeah, 1,000, but the price goes up crazy.
Prices, well, that's what I'm saying. Go to a junkyard. Like, who wants to crash Lucid?
So if you could hack a inverter that's 1,000 volts, and then you could build a 1,000-volt battery pack. Batteries are just stacking together. That's how much voltage it is, right?
Right, exactly.
So I mean, it's really the inverter. If the inverter can take it, and then it can control the motor via your VCU, which is your brain behind the logic. It's just discharging that battery and letting that inverter manage and spin that motor.
Awesome.
Crazy.
That's your formula. Easy.
That's cool. No, it's just there's so much like I'd love to come back in like a decade and do this interview again, just to like the state of the art. You know what I mean?
How about in when are these projects going to be done? SEMA?
SEMA, dude. I'm pushing. Okay. I'm not spending much free time to myself on weekends. I'm just like yesterday was all CAD. I had one free day the day before that, and then I'm 6 to 7 days a week on these cars.
Okay.
Awesome.
So we don't have to come back in 10 years. We can check.
No,
back.
but you know what I'm saying.
I know.
Yeah,
we check back in November.
Yeah.
See what's the goal for the crazy one for the EK? How much horsepower are we trying?
Well, there's two small drives, so a little over 300 each. So let's just call it 600 horsepower.
600 horsepower, 85 kilowatt hour, 85 kilowatt battery in a package that'll probably weigh hopefully under 4,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, it'll be under 4,000. Okay. I can guarantee that, but it's still going to be the heaviest EK in the world for sure.
Now, do you run into like the stiffness of the body in white when you start adding not just a little bit more weight, but so much more power? And now you're adding it at both corners.
Well, he took the whole floor out, and
I'm saying like so. What have you started to worry about that yet?
No cage, but
don't cage street cars, kids.
Yeah, my motor like subframe that I've built, is very stout.
Okay.
So that's really holding the stuff together. Also, I got with KW on this one, and they engineered some special suspension for to help me with my rear all-wheel drive setup. So I have to be able to have drive axles in the back. That's one thing. And then also the spring rates, and I'm using like the race coilover suspension and stuff.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, KW does good stuff.
of course.
Yeah.
So if you want to follow along, you can just Google RyWire and
Spell
Civic and rywir.com. There's actually you running your own. Are you still running a blog updating people, or is that kind of also?
No, the blog was something that like we just put on the website. We
Yeah.
don't really like touch that too much.
No one
It's
does
most-
blogs anymore.
Yeah.
Social media killed blogs.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I wish I posted more, but I don't post a lot. Also, I'm on a lot of people's YouTube channels, so you can just like catch me on random YouTube.
So YouTube RyWire
I do have a YouTube. Yeah.
RY Wire.
Yep.
And then what's your Instagram?
That's right. There's an E on wire, despite what Ed said previously.
What's your Instagram?
RyWire_motorsport is what I changed it to because it used to be super long. So just
Okay.
at RyWire_motorsport.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, this went by super fast. Yeah, let's check in again once these things are done. Maybe
Yeah.
you can. Maybe we can go test them.
That'd be awesome. I'd
Yeah,
love to,
I'd love to drive one.
I want you to drive the EK.
All motor burnouts.
I want to try the S2000 actually.
Yeah.
That would
was
be
fun, too.
Awesome.
those are fun.
Ryan Basseri, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The InEVitable Vodcast, brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya. Inspired by the future, designed for the now.